If you want to invest in UK property in 2025, where should you start? Well, we analyse thousands of property deals each year, from the Scottish Highlands to the Cornish coast. And today, I'm using all this data to rank every UK region from worst to best. I'll talk you through which areas are overrated and overpriced, where you can find the best yields and growth potential, and how to make a profit even if you're just getting started. Now, before we dive into it, obviously there are great investments in every part of the UK, and the right property for you will depend on how much money you have to invest, how experienced you are, and probably your location too. But since I can't tailor this video to you personally, let's assume that you're aiming for a mix of capital growth and rental income, you're taking a relatively hands-off approach, and location isn't a limitation, so you're willing to travel or hire a letting agent if needed. Oh, and I'm using Zoopla's regional definitions and excluding Northern Ireland just because I don't know it well enough to rank. So with that out of the way, let's get on with it. So we'll start with 10th place. We've got a region that used to be a golden ticket for property investors, but today it's much harder to turn a profit. Take Claire, for example. Back in 2005, she bought a 3-bed semi in a busy commuter town for just £200,000. She was able to rent it out immediately thanks to strong demand, and over the years the rent steadily increased while her mortgage stayed low. By the time she remortgaged, she was sitting on a mountain of equity, and her rental income was more than covering the costs. Fast forward to 2025 and along comes Sam. He buys the same house, only now it costs nearly £500,000. His mortgage eats up most of the rent. And thanks to local wages not keeping pace, charging more would make it harder to attract and keep good tenants. His yield is under 4%, meaning he makes very little profit after expenses and tax. You might chalk Sam's experience up to bad luck, but the region as a whole has seen some of the lowest price growth in the UK over the past year. That's partly because prices were already high to begin with, and partly because affordability is now completely out of sync with earnings. The high prices in this region mean that the average house now costs almost 9 times the average income for a home buyer and leaves landlords increasingly vulnerable to rising mortgage rates. You've probably guessed by now that we're talking about the southeast. Obviously, we're talking about a huge region with lots of variety here. You've got high-end commuter towns like Guildford and Sevenoaks, more affordable family areas like Reading and Basingstoke, and coastal cities like Southampton, Portsmouth and Brighton, all of which still have strong rental demand, busy student markets and a decent employment hubs. But the data shows just how hard it is to make a profit in these areas. Yields are low, growth has stalled, and investors are being squeezed, especially if they've over-leveraged themselves to buy multiple properties. If you're investing here because it's close to home, fair enough, but be selective. You need to be getting yourself a particularly strong deal to make it worthwhile. And definitely don't compromise on property quality to chase a specific yield. By the way, if you want to download the map I'm using today with more detailed information on exactly which areas are the best and worst to invest in, then click the link in the description. In 9th place, we've got a region that looks pretty solid on paper, but when you dig into the data, the cracks start to show. Let's say you're hunting for your next buy-to-let, and you come across a decent-looking 2-bed in a historic market town. The price is manageable, rental demand seems steady, and yields look okay. You won't be quitting your job tomorrow, but it's enough to make the numbers work. So, you buy it. 6 months later, the property next door goes up for sale, but for less than you paid. Your tenant announces that they're leaving to be closer to their job in London. And when you look at similar properties on Zoopla, you see that many sellers are having to reduce their prices. The region is experiencing the slowest growth rate in the whole UK over the past 12 months. And it currently has more price cuts than any other part of the country. Sellers are struggling, buyers are hesitating, and investors are caught in the middle. Part of the issue is transport. This region should benefit from its close proximity to London, but poor infrastructure and patchy train links prevent many of the towns and cities in this area from becoming true commuter hubs. And this limits demand and drags down growth potential. Affordability isn't on your side either, as the average home here now costs around 8 times the average income. So where are we talking about? The east of England. Admittedly, cities like Peterborough and Norwich have risen in popularity over the last decade or so. Peterborough in particular often shows up on underrated investment lists thanks to decent yields, strong tenant demand and relatively low entry prices. But those bright spots don't represent the whole region. There's a lot of mediocrity in between. Places where growth is sluggish, affordability is stretched, and transport options fall short of what you'd expect for the price. If you're going to invest here, you need to be picky. Even if you live in the area yourself, you need to find those hidden gems. I'm talking about the small cities or towns with their own local economies, decent connectivity, and rental yields that work. Because while this region won't make you rich overnight, the right investment here could still deliver solid, steady returns as long as you choose carefully. In 8th place, we've got a region that's stunning to visit, but hard to profit from. Imagine you're standing in front of a beautiful Georgian terrace, surrounded by cobbled streets, trendy coffee shops, and a queue outside the bakery. It feels like the kind of places where property prices only go one way. And for a long time, they did. But over the last few years, prices are barely budging, creeping up by just 1% per year, give or take. That's less than inflation and one of the slowest rates in the UK. It's getting harder and harder to make the numbers work, whether you buy an HMO near a red brick university or an Airbnb in a popular seaside town. The big cities are really expensive, which is terrible for mortgage costs and limits the potential for more growth. And the coastal hotspots and rural villages don't have the population density, employment base, or transport links you'd want to see as a landlord. So where are we? The southwest, of course. It's not all bad news, though. According to Paragon Bank, this region actually has the third best rental yields in the UK, which might surprise you given how high prices are in places like Bath. And there's serious investment happening behind the scenes. Somerset is getting a new electric vehicle battery factory, which is expected to create 9,000 jobs. A nuclear power station is underway in Somerset, which should also cause a spike in job opportunities. So there are reasons to be cheerful as long as you know where to look. If you're going to invest here, the key is to focus on the bigger towns and cities that are popular but still relatively affordable. Think Cheltenham, think Swindon. Don't stretch for Bath or Bristol just because they're shiny. And don't go rural unless you're very confident in the long-term demand. And above all, make sure you're not compromising on the area or the property just to make the numbers work. In at number 7, we've got a region that everyone wants to invest in until they actually run the numbers. On the surface, this place has it all. Global prestige, huge rental demand, and a population of nearly 9 million. Ever since buy-to-let mortgages became widely available in the late 90s, this place has been the go-to for investors chasing capital growth. You didn't need to be a genius to make money in this market. You simply needed to own a property. The market and high demand did the work for you. But over the last few years, something has shifted. Prices in this region have more or less flatlined since 2016. On the one hand, this has improved affordability, especially after adjusting for inflation. But on the other hand, it's made people realise that house prices aren't always guaranteed to go up. At the same time, the numbers are being squeezed from every direction. Yields are still among the lowest in the UK, averaging around 5.5% according to Paragon Bank, which sounds high to me. But that's compared to 7 to 8% in more northern regions. And that's despite the fact that rents have risen sharply in the past 2 to 3 years. The gap between rent and price is closing, but not fast enough to make the sums work for most investors. And with property prices still well above the national average, the barrier to entry remains high. And affordability for owner-occupiers is the worst in the country. Add to that a slowing growth rate, largely because wages need time to catch up, and it's easy to see why many landlords have started looking elsewhere. There's no prizes for guessing where we are. It's London, of course. As much as we love the big city, it's harder than ever to justify it as an investment, unless you're playing the long game or you have a very specific investment strategy in mind. That said, opportunity does still exist here, just not where you might expect. Rising mortgage rates and affordability issues have pushed some landlords to sell quickly, and that's created openings for investors who are ready to move fast, negotiate hard, and take on properties that need work. So if you're determined to invest in London, be realistic. You're unlikely to find cash-flowing gold mines or get instant capital growth. But you can find sellers who are open to negotiation and find pockets of value, especially if you know the area well. In 6th place, we've got a region known more for its rugged landscapes and ancient castles than its rental yields. But when we look at the numbers, the benefits are obvious. It's actually the most affordable place in the UK for residential buyers. Even in its most expensive city, the average home costs just 6.8 times the average income. That's better than the UK average and significantly more accessible than the South East or London. The yields are some of the best in the UK too. Prices have been rising steadily. And whether you're looking at big cities or smaller towns, there are plenty of options for long-term growth. The downside is that legislation is a little tougher than it is in other regions. Incoming rent controls, tougher regulations, and higher stamp duty surcharges for investors mean landlords in this region have to jump through more hoops than those in other areas and have less control over their investments. It's frustrating because, aside from that, it's hard to find fault with a country famous for its whiskey, dramatic landscapes, and Hogwarts-level architecture. That's right, I'm talking about Scotland. Edinburgh, Glasgow, Stirling, and Dundee, to pick just a few examples, each have strong local economies, big student populations, and high rental demand. So while the numbers look great, if you're investing here, you'll need to be extremely careful. There are still opportunities to be had, and for some, the yields will make the extra hassle worth it. But you've got to get your tenant selection right, and you need to stress test your numbers in anticipation of rent increases being capped in the future. In 5th place, we've got a region that's been quietly outperforming much of the UK. It's home to a growing capital city, lots of coastal towns with tourist appeal, and most importantly, house prices that still offer good value compared to the rest of the UK. Average affordability is around 5.9 times average earnings, and buyer demand here has actually gone up recently, bucking the trend we've seen elsewhere. This makes it one of the fastest growing parts of the country for house prices in recent years. But sadly, it's not all smooth sailing. While there are strong performers, particularly in and around the capital, much of the country doesn't have the infrastructure, job market or transport links to support sustained rental demand. And holiday let hotspots are facing new tax rules that could hit short-term landlords hard. So where are we? Wales. Cardiff continues to do well, and there are certainly opportunities in holiday destinations too, but you'll need to be cautious. Stick to the bigger cities with diverse economies and growing populations. That's where you'll find the most stable long-term returns. In fourth place, we've got a region that rarely makes the headlines, but while some parts of the market are looking a bit peaky, others can deliver some blinding returns. Prices aren't too high. You could expect decent yields, and it has great transport links, strong road and rail networks, and a good balance of employment across sectors. And in its biggest city, there's been huge infrastructure investment, with more to come. We're talking about the West Midlands, of course. Birmingham continues to offer good value for a major UK city, and the surrounding areas like Wolverhampton, Dudley, Walsall and Kidderminster are worth your time too. Don't expect anything flashy. Instead, expect a solid middle ground region that performs well without being too volatile. If you're looking for steady, sustainable returns and room for growth, the West Midlands should absolutely be on your radar. In third place, we've got one of the UK's most affordable yet promising regions. This area has the lowest average house prices in England, making it ideal for those with a limited budget. And the yields? They're the best in the country. You can expect between 7 and 9% depending on where you buy. And I suspect there's more to come. Because although this region has seen lower growth than elsewhere in the UK since 2008, that means it hasn't had its full catch-up moment yet. And with buyer demand now 10% higher than last year, some parts of this region are finally starting to heat up. So what's holding it back? Well, transport is a challenge. Connections to the rest of the UK aren't great, and investment in infrastructure has lagged behind other regions. There are also some areas with deep economic challenges, places where property is cheap for a reason, and where demand may never truly take off. But if you know where to look, there are real opportunities here. Welcome to the North East. Focus on popular parts of strong cities like Newcastle and Durham, and avoid the temptation to chase rock-bottom prices. The value here is real, but it does require some effort. In second place, we've got a region that's incredibly well connected, has a strong employment base, and is seeing buyer demand surge faster than almost anywhere else in the country. Without wanting to give away the location too soon, it's a major hub for logistics, it has fast rail connections travelling in every direction, and its main cities offer a great balance between affordability and performance. In early 2025, Zoopla reported that buyer inquiries and agreed sales in this region were up by double digits year on year, which tells me that this area is gaining momentum and could have an even brighter future. We are, of course, talking about the East Midlands. Cities like Nottingham and Leicester are consistently popular with investors, while the often overlooked Derby is also looking promising. I've personally invested in Derby and Loughborough over the past few years, and honestly, I'm struggling to find anything bad to say about them. The East Midlands is just a really solid all-round performer with potential for long-term growth. And finally, in first place, we've got the region that's absolutely stormed ahead in recent years and looks set to continue outperforming for the foreseeable future. This area has seen the strongest property price growth in England, and according to Savills, it's predicted to lead the pack over the next 5 years too. It's home to 2 of the UK's most exciting cities, along with dozens of strong towns and suburban markets. Affordability is excellent, especially for first-time buyers. Yields are strong in many locations, and the rental demand still growing. You've probably guessed it by now, I am of course talking about the Northwest. Manchester and Liverpool are obvious standouts, but the wider Greater Manchester area offers incredible potential too. It's partly down to the ripple effect that we've seen spreading out from the city centres. So if you're used to London or the South East, don't just pick the area with the highest yield and call it a day. The Northwest has genuine capital growth potential. So the goal should be finding quality investments in areas that offer both income and appreciation, because right now, this is the region with the best blend of everything, and that's why it takes top spot. But just because you know where to invest doesn't mean the deal is going to be a success. In 2025, the best opportunities aren't always on Rightmove. You need to spot them before anyone else does. To get started, check out this video next, where I share 7 secrets to spotting property deals that other buyers don't even know exist.